Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Friday Night Live. You probably all know anyway, but my guest tonight is Janet Gorand. Have I said your surname correctly there?
Gorand.
Gorand, right.
Yes, okay. Got a French husband.
Right, okay, I did wonder, okay. And obviously you're the founder of Tribe Sober.
That's true, yes. Yep.
Excellent, so welcome.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
So I thought what we'd do tonight, if we talk about your story and what you offer, so tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, well, maybe just a few biographical details, and then I'll dive into my sorry tale of the drinking. But I was born in Oxford, but I spent most of my life in London. And professionally, I was in human resources, training and development. And I worked for a long time at Christie's, which you probably know. I was the HR director there. And it was a fabulous job. I loved it. And I traveled around the world really with that job. But I also had to do, because I was in HR, it was quite, well, not that funny, but looking back, but at the time I liked it because it was part of my job to make sure that our treasured art specialists were happy, because Sotheby's was always after them, trying to poach them. So, of course, the way that I did that was I took them out to wonderful restaurants for lunch and, bought them nice wine and chatted them up and made sure that they were happy at work, etc. So that was literally part of my job. So that was, the drinking came in a little bit then. And then, of course, traveling, because Christie's have got offices all over the world. So I did lots of traveling. So, yeah, and then when I was, when was it? 2000, the year 2000, my husband and myself, we went to Cape Town on holiday. And we just fell in love with the place, really. And he was kind of nearing retirement and I was getting really fed up with the corporates thing. And I always wanted to do my own thing. So we decided to move here, because our kids were all grown up, we're second marriage, but kids grown up. So we moved here, which was rather impulsive, but we've been kind of living here happily ever since. I was consulting in HR for the first, I think about 8 years I did here. And I loved it because it was a nice different environment for me. I was doing lots of the kind of Black empowerment, the scorecard that they have here. And it was so different and so interesting, did lots of training. So that's a bit about me. Yes, I'm married with a grown-up son and a chihuahua. Yeah, what else should I tell you? So let me tell you about the drinking, because as I was saying to you before you press the live button, I've run 65 workshops now. They used to be face-to-face, but now they're on Zoom. And at the beginning of every workshop, because people are a bit nervous, they're very apprehensive when they turn up. They're always worried that they'll see someone they know. But I always tell them, well, it doesn't matter because they're in the same boat, really. So to put them at their ease, I tell them my story. So I've actually told this story for 65 times, and this is the 66th.
Okay.
So the way that I tell it, so it's not too long and rambling, because obviously I'm quite old now, so it's a long story. But what I do is I divide it into 3 wake-up calls, and the first 2 I ignored, and the third I finally listened to. But my first wake-up call was at the age of 25, because I lived in a flat in London with 4 other girls. When I was in my 20s, actually, I worked at the BBC. And we all had good jobs, but in the evening, the wine would come out and whatever. And, I guess I was daily drinking even then. And I'd have, 2 glasses, maybe 3. But sometimes when we had people around, I'd have more. And I think, I knew that I loved wine and I loved drinking, but it didn't bother me. I mean, we were all a bit like that anyway, so you don't even notice it. But my first wake-up call, the age of 25, I woke up in hospital one morning and I had no idea where I was, what hospital I was in, why I was there. Just knew that I felt terrible. And I had to, one of my flatmates came to see me, and she told me what had happened. So what had happened was, we were all drinking away, and I was going a bit over the top as usual. And what I'd announced at about midnight that I was going to bed, and I decided to have a bath. Well, I didn't decide anything because I was completely blackout drunk, but I was on automatic pilot. You know how you find yourself just doing stuff. I remember one of your stories about that when you couldn't remember anything. So it was just my habit to always have a bath before I went to bed. It still is. So what had happened is I'd gone into the bathroom and I'd locked the door, which I usually do because we were sharing a flat. And then I'd got in the bath, and then my flatmates, they went to bed about 20 minutes later, and they just knocked on the door to say good night, and they got no reply. And then they knocked a bit harder, still no reply. Started hammering on the door, no reply. So then they panicked, and they rang 999, and they explained. So the fire brigade turned up, would you believe, with an ambulance, and they knocked the door down, and sure enough, I was under the water. So if my flatmates hadn't have bothered, or if they'd have been as drunk and stupid as I was, I certainly wouldn't be here today. No. So that was my first wake-up call. And in fact, in the hospital, there was a psychiatrist there that came to see me, and he said, so, tell me, what did you try? Were you trying to kill yourself? And I said, no, I was having a really nice evening. But he thought, I should have a session. I said, no, I'm fine. I'm just a bit hungover. Yeah. And what we did is all of us, we just laughed it off. It became a joke, a legend. It was one of the stories. And people used to say, oh, did you hear about Janet in her bath? What an idiot. So that was wake up call number one. So, went on working, living in the flat, enjoying our lives. And then when I was 30, I got married for the first time. And he was a drinker as well. I think we met in a bar, always drinking. And he also had a good job, and we were very functioning alcoholics. Well, we never would have said we were alcoholics at the time, but I would now. And we both, held the jobs together. But every night the wine would be out, and we'd have a shot of Jack Daniels probably when we got home. And we'd have dinner parties that went on till 3 o'clock in the morning. And I still remember all the bottles on the table. But all of our friends were like that, so we'd really normalized it totally. And that went on quite okay. And our careers developed. I had my son, and I did stop drinking for 9 months, but I found it a real trial, and I knew that I would be drinking again. I was literally counting the days, and I was so happy when we could finally celebrate his birth. So back to it. And then into my early 40s, then I got married. I got divorced and married again. And I always say, just to tease my second husband, that's when the trouble started, because he's French and they've got a very different attitude to the Brits with drinking. They don't go out to get hammered. It doesn't really occur to them to keep drinking. And he, kind of noticed my drinking and used to kind of grumble a bit. And I remember our honeymoon, we went to Barbados, and we were sitting at the beach bar, and I was knocking back the rum punches. And the way that he tells it, he just turned around to say something to me, and I'd slipped off my bar stool, and I was just lying in the sand. And he was mortified, whereas my first husband just would have laughed his head off, and teased me relentlessly the next day. But this one, he was quite cross about it. And he said, oh, I was so embarrassed having to carry you back to the room. And so he wasn't into the drinking, didn't like it at all. So because I wanted to stay with him, I tried to cut down. And that's when I realized that I was dependent, because it was so difficult. I looked up what the low risk levels were, a bottle and a half a week. And I thought, oh no, I drink that every night. What are they talking about? But I tried, and I had a little diary, and I used to write down all the units. And sometimes, you know, by sheer willpower, I could keep going for 3 weeks, and then the wheels would come off and I'd get blackout drunk, and we'd have a huge row and be round and round in circles. And that went on for 10 years, would you believe? Because, and the reason was that I couldn't bear the thought of never drinking again. I just couldn't imagine life without alcohol, life without wine. You know, what would that look like? So it never crossed my mind to stop completely. And looking back, I think, oh God, you know, it's so much easier just to ditch the bloody stuff than to try and control it. It's an addictive drug.
Yeah.
So you know, this went on for 10 years. And during that time, I had wake-up call number 2, which was breast cancer. And it was quite serious. You know, I had to have a mastectomy and chemotherapy. And it was a very difficult year, really. But I carried on drinking because I felt sorry for myself. I thought, well, I'm going to die anyway, so I might as well drink. I think I did change from white wine to red wine because I thought, well, red wine's good for your health. You know, this kind of nonsense that I'd read in a magazine somewhere. So that was wake up call number 2. And of course, now I understand a lot more about this subject. I'm convinced that my decades of heavy drinking is linked to that breast cancer, because it's kind of proven now. But at the time, I was in denial. And I'll always remember my oncologist when he kind of signed me off as much as they can with that thing. I said to him, I don't want to go through this again. Tell me what to do. You know, I'll do anything. I'll drink water. I'll eat plants, whatever. I'll do it, because I'm so committed now to staying healthy. And he said, no, he said, you've got out of this now. You must go away and enjoy the rest of your life. You know, you must eat and drink and just be happy. So I felt like I'd been given carte blanche, really. So off I go again, you know, drinking, husband furious. So that went on, and we moved to South Africa, where for a Brit, I think when you arrive here, it's like you've died and gone to heaven, because not only does everybody sit around drinking just like you do in the UK, but the sun is shining as well. So I just loved it here. And the first few years, you know, I was fine. I was consulting and drinking in the evenings, but still functioning. And then I had my third wake-up call, which I finally listened to, because it was a walking, talking blackout, as I called it. Because I'd had lots of blackouts. Well, obviously the first one in the bath, but since then, I'd have lots of those kind of blurry blackouts, you know, when you can't remember quite how the evening ended, and you discover that someone's not speaking to you and you can't imagine why not and what you've said to them, those kind of blackouts. And I would wake up and think, oh, where's my handbag? Where's my jacket? That kind of nonsense, you know. So I'd had loads of those, obviously, hundreds of them, I guess. But this was different, because I was away for the weekend with some friends. We'd rented a beautiful house here on the West Coast. There were about 10 of us. And the host was a very bon vivant, you know, big drinker. And we started on the bubbly at breakfast time on the Saturday, and it just went on and on. And then on the Sunday morning, I woke up and I felt so weird and so ill, and I just couldn't remember anything. But I was certainly not going to admit, you know, how ill I felt. I had the stiff upper lip, you know, the British approach. I'm fine. Bit fragile, but I'm fine. So big breakfast, bubbles out again. And I said in a little chirpy voice, why don't we walk down to the next village? Because I've heard that there's a beautiful house there. So next time we come this way, maybe we rent that one. And the whole table went a bit silent, and people started looking a bit embarrassed. And someone said, Janet, we went to look at that house yesterday afternoon. You were with us and you seemed fine. You weren't slurring your words. You weren't stumbling. You seemed absolutely normal. And I had no recollection of an entire afternoon. So, you know, I'd lost about 8 or 9 hours. And for some reason, that really scared me, because I think by that time I was beginning to acknowledge that, the breast cancer and that was harming my body. But as you get older, the thought that you're harming your brain as well, that really did it for me. So I Googled what that kind of blackout was all about. And it's not just that you've forgotten stuff, but your brain is so soaked in alcohol that you can't make memories. And I thought, oh, how creepy is that?
Yeah.
So that was it. And then the next morning, on the Monday morning, I said to long-suffering husband, I said, that's it, I'm done with alcohol. And to be fair to him, he didn't laugh or say, yeah, I heard that before. He said, oh, you've never said that before. You've always said you're going to cut down. So that was the key really for me. And it was hard. And then, of course, once I decided I was going to ditch the stuff, then I had to work out how to do it because I was so dependent. So I trotted down to AA and I hated that. I tried several meetings, but I don't know if I was just unlucky where I went, but they were mainly men, and they were real kind of hardcore drinking in the morning kind of people that had lost everything. And I just didn't feel like they were my people, and I thought it was a bit counterproductive because I'd look at them and think, well, I'm not like them. Maybe I'm not an alcoholic after all. Maybe I can just carry on with my bottle of wine a night. But I knew that I couldn't really. So I thought, well, AA isn't for me. There's got to be something better out there. So I carried on looking, and I found Club Soda, that you probably know, in London. And at that time, I don't think they do it anymore, but at that time they were running workshops. So I thought, oh, that looks interesting, because I was due to go home for a visit anyway. So I went, and it was great. And it was just a one-day workshop. And it was run by a nurse, actually, an ex-nurse. And she spent the day, telling us about all the harm it does to our bodies. So it was like aversion therapy. But it kind of scared me and made me realize what I was doing to myself. But the thing that really made it work for me was the people there. They were women, and they'd all got good jobs, nice families, drinking a bottle of wine a night, but they knew that 7 bottles of wine every single week wasn't cool, and more at the weekends. So we kind of bonded because we all told our sad little tales. And then we swapped phone numbers, and I stayed connected with those ladies, and I still am, 7 years later. And we managed to do it, so at the workshop, we were given some tools as well to help us change our behavior. And I love to write, so I was doing lots of writing. I was doing a blog. And then when I got back to South Africa, I was about 7 or 8 months sober, and I was beginning to feel really good. So I started to have these ideas, and because you have a lot of time on your hands when you're sober. So I was like sitting there thinking, what am I going to do with my life now? And I had this idea, this brainwave, which was, well, I've run, hundreds of workshops in my time as an HR person. So I'm going to design and facilitate a workshop of my own in here in South Africa, because nobody was doing that. They're still not doing that here. So that's what I did. And the first one was in November 2015, and it was fully booked and kept running them. People kept coming. And then what happened is, people bonded just like I did when I went to my workshop, and they said, oh, we want to keep in touch, and we want more support to stay on track. So that's when I created a membership. So now people come to the workshops and they learn the theory, and then they become members, and then we help them to implement what they've learned. So that's it, really. I've been doing that now for 5 years, and just been doing podcasting now for the last year. And it just gets better and better, and it's such rewarding work. I really feel for the first time in my life that I've discovered purpose and meaning in my life, because much as I love Christie's, I was only there to make the rich people richer. It wasn't very meaningful or satisfying. Yet this work is, and I see the people coming to the workshop, we hear the stories, and the stories, they're all different, but they're all the same really. And it just strikes me, what damage this stuff does to people's lives. And it's just very rewarding to be able to help some people get out of that.
Yeah. When you quit then, so you had that experience and you said to your husband, that's it, I'm quitting. But you didn't actually quit at that moment. You were like, I'm going to quit. I need to find a way. And that's presumably you were still drinking then, but looking around for something to work.
Yeah, I mean, not excessively. I'd really frightened myself.
Yeah.
I was going to AA, and then I found club soda quite soon afterwards.
And
so,
did you?
Yeah,
So that was because what I find quite interesting with your story is there's kind of two stages for people. One is they have to dabble in moderation, because one of the reasons we drink so much is because we believe we enjoy it. And the idea, like you said yourself, you just can't bear the thought of never doing it again. So it's that thing of, I don't want to quit, but I can't carry on the way I'm going. And it's like the unstoppable force meeting the immovable object. And the idea is, well, okay, I'll moderate. And then you go through an extended period usually, and it's almost the most heartbreaking part of the entire thing, because that's where you really start to believe you have a massive problem because you can't control it. And like you said, through sheer willpower you can make it work for a bit. But what I found really interesting, so you did about a decade of that then. That's a
I call it the moderation trap. And I do believe, actually, for many people, me included, and a bit along the lines of what you're saying, that it's almost a stage. It's because any big decision in life, we have to go through a contemplation stage. And it's contemplation, really. And I think I was really stupid to stay in contemplation for so long. But we all need to do that. And I don't know if you saw that study by the Tempest recently. It was very interesting. They'd asked 250 people in recovery, how long was it between the moment you knew you had a drinking problem to the moment when you reached out and got some help and did something about it. And the average period was 11 and a half years.
Right, okay.
So...
Yeah. The other thing I found interesting, though, you quit, and that was it, because that's another thing you see with a lot of people. It's not a single event. With quite a lot of people, they try, they fail, they learn, they continue to improve, and over time, they finally hit the nail on the head at some point. But that's what I found very interesting with your story. It was, you made the decision, you worked towards it, and you quit, and that was it.
Yeah. Well, I think I've done all my relapsing with the moderation, and I think subconsciously I knew that you keep relapsing, keep trying, keep relapsing, keep trying, and all you're doing is the hardest bit over and over again. And that's what I tell people. But I have a lot of people in our community that we have annual trackers, and they're a bit old school. It's just a piece of paper, really. It's a calendar with lots of squares, and they color in all of their alcohol-free days. And, lots of them fall off the bus and they get back on the sober bus, as we call it, again. But what's happening is they're doing what we call sober stretches, and their sober stretches are getting longer and longer. And we've got a lady at the moment, we're all so thrilled with her, because she's had 84-day ones.
Wow, okay.
And now, 84. And now she's like 4 months sober. She's finally got it. But yes, a lot of people are like that. But with me, that was it. I was done. And a lot of people are like that. They, especially if you're a bit older, you start thinking, I can't do this anymore. You just know it's destroying you. And I always say, I don't have another recovery in me. I can't do this again. I'm done with it.
I think one of the big things is when you start to think it's a problem, it focuses your mind on it. And I think what you then do is, because I say this a lot to people, really concentrate on it when you're drinking it, and it's not the massively wonderful thing we think it is when we actually stop and analyze it. So I think if you realize you have a problem like you did, and then you go through all these years of sort of trying to come at it different angles, mainly by moderating, but what you're really doing is concentrating on it and thinking about it. And over that time, starting to work out that this just isn't for me. And it's almost like, to me, a lot of the time, it feels like, trying to push a heavy weight. When you get it moving, it sort of picks up a bit of momentum. And I think that's the thing, because as you said, it's exhausting moderating, isn't it? It's just
exhausting. Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
exhausting. So do you have people from, because obviously you're based in South Africa, is it mainly South African people who attend your workshops? And
Well, it used to be pre-pandemic, although I used to come over and run them in London once a year as well. I used to team up with Claire Pooley. I expect you know her.
Yes,
sure
yeah.
Yeah, she used to come on as a kind of guest presenter. So yeah, we had a great time. So yeah, when they were physical, mostly South Africans, but now, I mean, we get people from all over the world. We had someone from Peru on the last one.
Oh, right, okay.
But mainly UK and US and Australia. But the timing is a bit rough.
Doesn't really talk. So you do the workshops, obviously. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
You do the workshops, and then you've got challenges as well. You do.
Yeah, every year. Well, we do a big fundraiser because there's a beautiful NGO here called Earthchild, and it's in the townships and it's in the schools. And what they do is they go and do yoga in the schools, and it's beautiful. You know, it sounds bizarre because obviously, you know, there's extreme poverty and violence and gang warfare and nightmare going on. But these children, they just love their yoga, and it's so beautiful to watch them. And, you know, I go to their classes sometimes, and I remember a little boy came and said to me, oh, I love these classes. It's the only time that I dare to close my eyes. You know, these children have such terrible lives, but it's like, you know, a moment of peace for them, and they love the postures. And so we raise money for that every year, but we do that via a dry January. That's our dry January challenge. But at this time of year, we do what we call sober spring, because of course we're coming up to spring here.
Yeah.
So for the Brits, it's sober autumn. And what we do for that is 66 alcohol-free days. And it's great fun because we start everybody off on the same day. You know, so you've got a big group of people. It's usually 50, 60 people all doing it together. And you kind of throw them all on a WhatsApp group, and they're all a bit shy to start with, but you know, within days they're all best buddies and sharing their heart with everybody else. And it's great fun. So for 66 days, every single day they get like an email with tips, tools, inspiration. And they also get a mini podcast. We recorded 66, like 5-minute kind of bite-sized chunks. The idea with that is you listen before you go to sleep, and it kind of absorbed in your subconscious. So yeah, and we have a Zoom cafe every Saturday for them, usually with a presenter, some kind of education. And we're just posting, you know, articles and stuff on the WhatsApp group all the time. So this is our 4th year that we've run it. And we call it the Sober Spring Bus. And the first bus leaves on the 1st of September. And then we've got another bus at the end of September, 27th. And the reason why we chose 66 days is because apparently in 66 days, you can build a new neural pathway. So at the end of 60, so we try and promote it as a health thing. You know, if you want to give your body a boost, you know, have 66 days off alcohol, and also you'll test your dependence. But also if people want to quit, it's a great way to kind of start it off, because it's not forever. We say avoid the F word, you know, just do the challenge and see how you feel at the end. And we've had many people that feel so amazing after 66 days that they never drink again. So it really does work. And what often happens is people get to the 66 days and they think, oh, you know, I'm not sure I want to drink again. I think I'll set another goal for 100 days. And we usually have these little satellite groups going going for 100 days. And then, so it's a nice challenge, and it's great fun. And it's all on our website, which is tribesober.com. And I think I just worked out what it costs in UK. I mean, everything that we do is so cheap for,
brands,
for
isn't it?
everyone
Yeah.
else, actually, because the
Yeah.
standard of living is very low here, and our currency is rubbish, you know, because there's always
Yes.
terrible things happening in the country with the government. But for Brits, it's £17. And our membership is a mere £4 a month.
Okay.
So we are good value for
Yeah.
overseas people. We have lots of Americans. So yeah, we've got a nice international community.
I was going to say, what's the sober movement like out there? Is it gathering pace generally, or is it a bit behind? I know, obviously, here it seems to be ploughing ahead.
Yeah, I must say, I've heard lots of good things about the young ones in UK. Like 25% don't drink at all. I mean, that's amazing. But here, well, here it is quite interesting because we've had 4 alcohol bans during the pandemic.
Right. Okay.
Because alcohol causes carnage here. You know, in the it causes car crashes, gender-based violence, you know, violence generally, murders, everything is alcohol fueled. So the government quite cleverly just banned alcohol, and then the hospitals, they had room for the COVID patients.
Wow.
Because the trauma units are just overrun all the time by, you know, all of these casualties that are alcohol related. So there's obviously the legacy of apartheid is still very much with us, and there's a lot of poverty. And I think young men here, it's something like 50% of them can't get a job. So, you know, you can imagine if you're a young man and you've got no future, what are you going to do? You know, all your friends are drinking. So there's a very sad kind of drinking culture here. But having said that, the alcohol-free drinks market seems to have exploded here. We have so many choices. And there's even, I interviewed them for my podcast, there's a couple of ladies that have very cleverly set up an online shop, and it's called Drink Nil. And they've got more than 100 alcohol-free choices. You know, they've just collected everything, and they've got lovely stuff, and they'll deliver it to your door. You know, so all of our members get a discount with them, and there's so much going on. I think we could do with a few a few sober bars. You know, we haven't really got that yet. Where you have in England. I mean, I usually go to Redemption when I'm in London, which is great.
I think, unfortunately, I think the bars struggle a bit. Funny enough, there was a post in the group the other day, but I think the problem is because alcohol is addictive, people go and they tend to drink and drink and drink throughout the evening. But I think with alcohol-free bars, people turn up and have one or two.
Have a drink, then you go.
Yeah, that's it. Or they just, you know, take their time over one or two. There's not that panic to keep drinking. So I think at the moment they don't seem to be doing particularly well. They seem to open up and then a lot of them close down again. So I think they need
Redemption has done very well, but because they produce really delicious vegan food as well. I think, I think if you have the food, then you've got a whole restaurant and people all sit there for a meal. But it's I mean, it's a commercial dream, isn't it, to have a product that just makes
causes
people
the desire for
more.
itself. Exactly. And how many people have you got in your social media groups then at the moment? Is it growing?
I mean, we've got a few thousand. We've got about 6,000 on our mailing list, and then I think members, we've got about 350 now. It's not huge. It's still very manageable.
Because I noticed you've got quite a big team of people in Tribe Sober, haven't you, offering like advice and services? There's quite a few of them on the website from all different backgrounds. You've got a nice spread of like experience, haven't you, there?
Yeah, well, we've got a lovely, we've got all these practitioners now because we say that we want to take people on a 7-step journey, and it's not just about quitting the drink. You know, there's so much more to recovery than not drinking, isn't there? So we want to help them to stop drinking, and then we want them to learn to thrive in their alcohol-free life. And to do that, you have to reconfigure stuff, you know, and do different things and get healthy. So we have, for example, we have online yoga, we have online therapy, we have coaching, and all of these people offer, you know, very discounted services or a complimentary. We've got a hypnotherapist that does a complimentary first session. We've got an art therapist. So we've got all of these people that like to get involved, and many of them have had problems themselves. And then we've got, other people. I've got my my sidekick who's from Zimbabwe, who's called Courage. And I always say we need courage in this team. And, he does a lot of the admin and he manages the challenges. So, yeah, I've been very lucky. I've never gone out looking for people, but it's like I've got Sue as well, I'm rubbish with, I'm not very organized. So I hate things like spreadsheets. So when a British lady came along and said, oh, I'm an accountant, do you need any help? Yes. So she's got this massive spreadsheet with all of our members. And so she keeps everything beautifully organized. And then I can focus on writing and being more creative and podcasting and stuff. Excellent. So we are quite a big team.
Yeah, quite big, isn't it? Yeah.
But we're very passionate. We're not doing this to make money. We've just about cover our expenses, and that's it. We're happy with that.
How did you? Sorry, I know we're coming up to time now, but I was really enjoying talking to you. But how did you find? So obviously you're out in Cape Town. You've quit drinking, but you've been out there a few years, and you were saying that there's quite a big drinking culture out there. So and of course, as you know, when you're drinking, you make friends with people who are drinking. So you it's almost self-perpetuating because you're with people who drink a lot. How did you find that side of things where you quit? And then what, do you still, obviously you still socialize, but did you change your friends over the years? How did you find it when you first quit?
Well, it shifted. My kind of friendship circle did shift a little bit. And I lost, a few people that were obviously drinking buddies, and I kind of knew they were drinking buddies. But most of my friends kind of stuck by me. A couple of them have also gone sober.
Oh, right.
And, and other people are very impressed with what I've done. And I think, your friends do have a bit of a sort out, but your real friends will stick with you. They won't tell you you're boring. They'll say, amazing, well done. How can I support you? How can I help? That's what a real friend would say. And I've made so many new friends because of this. What's lovely in our community is I now, know a lot of people that I never would have met before. My paths never would have crossed. And, that's a real joy to meet people that are quite different to you. But we've all got this bond together because we understand each other. And it's the support you get from a community is very different from the support you get from friends and family, because however much they care about you, they don't really understand. And they say things like, well, surely you can have one glass of wine. And it's like, no, I can't. But, you'd never say that to someone in our crowd, for example. And,
no, exactly. Yeah.
No, I think you need to mix with people that understand.
Yeah, and I think it's useful as well because it is about changing your self-image as well, isn't it? Because we have these very strong self-images of drinking, and we drink in this situation and that situation, and it's very good to be with people then who don't drink, and you can sort of help to change your self-image as well as someone who doesn't drink. Yeah,
and you can have I always used to think that I drank to connect with people, but in fact I have much better connections now that I'm sober, but much better conversations. And people say we're boring when we don't drink, but what's more boring than a bunch of drunk people telling the same story over and over again?
Yeah, drunk people become very good at talking and very bad at listening, I've found. They just broadcast, and when they're not talking, their concentration completely wavers, doesn't it?
But I did find socializing difficult for the first few months, but I forced myself out there. I saw it as a challenge, and every time I went out, I'd write it up in my journal, and I'd almost tick off another box, and I'd go out, and I didn't really expect to enjoy myself. It just felt awkward. But I went there, and then I still remember one night coming home and thinking, oh, what an interesting crowd, and I'm going to meet this lady next week, and I must buy that book. And I realized that I'd really enjoyed myself and I hadn't drunk. And that was like a turning point. And I mean, I'm not saying that everything was fantastic after that, But that was the beginning. And I think it was because my subconscious had finally accepted, yes, you can have fun without alcohol.
Yeah.
Because I had such limiting beliefs.
It's practice, isn't it? I found that because I did a similar thing. I sort of, when I quit drinking, I just accepted that I wouldn't enjoy social situations ever again. But over time, you get back to it. And I always say, like, children enjoy social situations. We naturally know how to socialize without drinking, but it's something we forget when we start drinking. And when we quit drinking, we learn it again. Yeah. Janet, thank you so much. I want to keep talking, but it's time's getting on a bit. Thank you so much. So the website is the best place for people to find you on the website,
just
then
tribesober.com, and the podcast is called Tribe Sober, and we've done about 60 episodes now. There's one out every week, and there's a great one coming out tomorrow morning. They come out on Saturday mornings. So yeah, we'd love to have some Brits, more Brits. We've got a few
more
Brits.
People. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, it's a pleasure. Let's keep in touch, William.
Definitely. Take care. Bye.
Bye.